What's up YouTube, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and in this video we're going to be doing a detailed speed test between the iPhone 6s versus the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now a lot of you have been requesting this video following my initial benchmark test between these two, so a thumbs up for this would be appreciated. So what we'll be doing in this video is looking at some real world tests rather than just your benchmarks. So we'll be doing unlock tests, camera launch tests, and then some apps. We'll be testing out some apps, but what we'll also be doing towards the end is a RAM management test. So we'll see how well both of these devices manage RAM when you've got quite a few intensive apps open. So let's get straight into it. Now initially we're going to be testing out the fingerprint sensors, seeing which one is faster. So both devices are logged, and let's do this after 3, 2, 1. You can see that it was faster on the iPhone 6s. Now let's just try this one more time just to make it fair. So 3, 2, 1. Once again, faster on the iPhone 6s, so I would give the edge here to the iPhone 6s. Now the next test we're going to do is the camera launch. Now the S6 does have a quick camera launch option, double tapping the home button. Now disclaimer, I had to film both of these separately just because I can't function my hands both at the same time doing different things like this. So they have been filmed separately to make this as fair as possible. Now here you can see that the S6 does launch faster with the iPhone 6s. Using Touch ID, it actually unlocks the device straight away without actually taking you to the lock screen, so you do have to go ahead and launch the app yourself. Now if you want not to use Touch ID, doing this test again and launching the camera from the lock screen, it still does load faster on the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now before we move on, just to show you that there are no recent apps open at this time, and we will be opening apps freshly, and then we'll be testing out the RAM management. Now let's move on to some browser tests. So we've got the native browsers on here, Safari on the iPhone 6s and Samsung's default browser here, and we've opened a private window on both devices so that there's nothing in the cache, and we'll be going on to BBC News. So going on to both at the same time. Now it looks like the S6 has finished loading first, but then a few elements start popping in a bit later, so that's a little bit confusing to see. So now let's just accept cookies and we'll open up the latest article on there. So opening both up at the same time. Now once again, it seems like the S6 the loading bar did finish quicker, but then we still had a few elements sort of pop in. Okay, so now let's just take this test a little bit further, and we will open the UK England homepage on BBC News. So we'll do that at the same time. And this occasion, it did load faster on the iPhone 6s. So difficult to see in browser tests which one is overall faster. They seemed pretty close. So we'll move on to another app. So let's try Instagram. This is a popular app that I use quite often. So opening both at the same time. Did finish loading quicker on the S6, even if it was very slightly. Now let's go on to my profile here, so we'll just see what's the difference here. Quicker on the iPhone 6s here, and we'll open up an image on both devices, and we'll leave that open in the background. So ever so slightly quicker on the S6, so that was very close. So now let's try YouTube. So we'll open YouTube at the same time. Now the apps are slightly different because obviously they're for different operating systems, so let's skip to an actual video. So opening an actual video, and it did load quicker ever so slightly on the iPhone 6s. Now what we'll do is we'll pause these videos and we will jump into some games. So let's try out Temple Run 2, and we'll open both up here. And we can see that it finishes first on the Samsung Galaxy S6. So it did load up slightly quicker on the Samsung Galaxy S6. But let's try a more graphically intensive game. So Dead Trigger 2 is quite intensive here on graphics. So let's open that up here. And it's clear to see that the iPhone 6s did load the game up faster. Now let's go on to play the game. One thing to bear in mind is, yes, that the S6 has a much higher resolution, so it is pushing out that many more pixels. I am bearing that in mind, but the fact is that this video is specifically about speed. And once again, it did finish quicker on the iPhone 6s compared to the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now let's try out the RAM management. So we've got all of these apps open that we have been trying out in this video. And let's go on to our recent apps on both devices. We're going to try opening up some of our recently used apps and seeing how quickly they load back up. So initially we will go back on to Instagram. Yep, so they are both open up on here, so that's good to see. Now we will try Temple Run 2. once again where we left them, so that's pretty good as well. So let's go ahead and continue this test. So we'll go ahead and try Dead Trigger 2. That's probably the most intensive here, and that is still open and at the same point, so that is good to see. So the game is still paused. Now let's carry on and we will try out the YouTube video. So let's go into the YouTube video and see if that's still the same place. Now it looks like, yep, we have to reload the video on the Samsung Galaxy S6. On the iPhone 6s, it is still there. So it looks like the RAM management issues of the S6 are starting to kick back in. So now let's carry on this test and we'll go back on to the browser. So let's go over onto the browser. So see if our web page is still open on both devices. We've got no cuts here, so we're seeing exactly how it is. There you go. Once again, the S6 having to reload the page, whereas it's open on the iPhone 6s. So this issue looks like it still does remain. We'll do one more test and we'll go on to Temple Run 2 and we'll open both up at the same time. And once again, you can see that the S6 is having to reload all of these apps even though it has more RAM. So this is something that Samsung definitely need to address with a software update. So there we have it, the speed test between the iPhone 6s and the Samsung Galaxy S6. Now I would say in a lot of the cases they were pretty much neck and neck, especially with some of the smaller, less intensive apps. But the one issue that you do have with the S6 is that RAM management. So it's got more RAM, but it tends to close down the apps in the background for some reason. I'm not sure why this is. So that is definitely something to bear in mind. But anyway, that's what you have, and the results are there for you guys to discuss in the comments section below. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, then please do hit that thumbs up button for me. It really does help me out. And if you haven't already, then be sure to subscribe to the channel. I've got plenty more content coming up on here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on Super Saf TV. I'll see you next time.